Welcome to the chalkboard, my fellow football nerds, for episode number 210 of Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Shane Haff, and you can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. I'm joined, as always, by the best co-host in the game. You've heard him on not the Tough Cover Radio Show. You've heard him on the Saturday Morning Spread, right here on the Eagles Pinpool Network. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. Mark, how you doing today?
Well, they may have heard me on the Tough Cover Radio Show, but now they can hear me on Saturday Morning Spread on Saturdays on Eagles Pinpool. But yeah, I'm excited. Great NFL week. I even have a new segment idea to throw at Shane potentially live on the show. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know when it'll come up. We'll see.
All right, I have a final thoughts idea too. So we'll see if we have time, which is always hit or miss with us. But we're going to try to push through some of these games, and we are going to basically skip the Thursday night game. Baltimore won 28-6. Baltimore's back. Miami stinks. Let's move on into the Sunday slate. Sorry if you're a Dolphins fan, but, let's be honest. There's not much to talk about there. So let's get into the Sunday slate, and let's kick it off with a ridiculous game. Chicago at Cincinnati. Chicago wins 47-2. The Bears led this game 41-27 with just under 2 minutes left. But then they lost the lead with under a minute left. How did they do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. They gave up a touchdown, then a 2-point conversion, then an onside kick, then another touchdown, and we're down 42-41. But then the Bears went 72 yards in 37 seconds because the Bengals defense might literally be the worst unit that has ever been assembled in any professional sport. The Bengals have put up 38 and 42 points the last 2 weeks, and they lost to a team with 0 wins and a team that hadn't put up 25 points in a month despite playing the Raiders, Commanders, Saints, and Ravens. The Bengals have now given up back-to-back 500-yard games. And oh yeah, they also gave up back-to-back passing touchdowns by non-quarterbacks. Breece Hall ended the game last week with a touchdown pass to propel the Jets to a victory. DJ Moore got a passing touchdown to start the game this week. So all-time stinker for the Bengals defense. It's almost like Lou Anarumo wasn't the problem.
Yeah, and it's 2 straight games now for the Bengals that they've just blown beyond how anyone could imagine. And, if you win those games, you're 5-4 in a bad division that we've talked about is up for grabs, whether it's the Steelers hanging on for dear life or whether, I guess they bounced back this week. We'll talk about it, or the Ravens storming back and just being the Ravens down the stretch here. So, but still, both teams behind the 8 ball in certain ways. Cincinnati could have put themselves in an interesting spot for Joe Burrow to come back, and instead, like the comments are saying, the locker room is in absolute flames. I don't know what. In some ways, I think if this led to, not in some ways, I'll say it point blank, if this led to Zach Taylor being fired because the season went so poorly, then I'd say this is all a positive for Cincinnati. But I don't have faith in Cincinnati to make that decision. He does only have 1 more year on his contract after next year, especially since he's gotten the offense somewhat going with Flacco. I feel like we talked about this maybe last week, but I think that'll probably save his job yet again. And he'll be able to use the excuse of Burrow being out and all of that. But
the offense isn't your problem, my friend. 40-year-old Joe Flacco is on pace for 5,329 yards and 46 touchdowns over a 17-game season with the Bengals. So offense is not the problem right now, for sure.
Yeah, and
by the way, both of those would be better than any numbers Burrow has ever put up. So, maybe Burrow's the guy that's a system quarterback with a super team, not Jalen Hurts, but I digress.
Hey, in my heart of hearts, I know who I would take in a big game, but that's a whole other conversation. But it's, I do think it reflects poorly on Zach Taylor, the way that Jamar Chase and Chase Brown and others in the Bengals locker room on offense handled the loss. And I'm not saying I blame them. How could you blame them? The defense has been a catastrophe for 2 years. And I think you could even date it back to anything post Super Bowl. The defense has not been very good, or Super Bowl appearance, I should say. But it's still, I think, has to reflect poorly on Zach Taylor.
Yeah. All right.
And then, by the way, just real quick, not to spend too much time on it, Bears won the game. And it's funny, they put up 47, and I don't think anybody thinks Caleb was like incredible or like feel it really changes their opinion about Caleb in any way. But what I will say is the Bears aren't very good. They're pretty fake 5-3 if you look through the wins. They just gave up 42 to Cincinnati. But I will say Ben Johnson has the same record as the Detroit Lions. And I think that that's a fun little nugget because after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whenever it was, when they lost 52-21, I think they blew it against Minnesota. People wrote the obituary on Ben Johnson's head coaching career. And also, how dare people?
Uh-oh. All right. Mark appears to be frozen. Hopefully he unfreezes and or hops back in if we lose him here. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next game. We'll let Mark repeat his rant when he comes back in here. I think it'll be there on the audio side later. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the Detroit Lions here. Minnesota at Detroit. Minnesota wins 27-24. And the Vikings defense has been rough the last couple of weeks. But they showed up in this game and they took it to the Lions. They held the Lions to 65 rushing yards on only 20 carries. They sacked Jared Goff 5 times. They pressured him relentlessly. They forced 4 3-and-outs and a fumble. They blocked a field goal. And so the Vikings defense had a couple of really bad weeks, but they bounced back in a big way against a big division opponent on the road in the Lions. And, maybe they're rallied a little bit because J.J. McCarthy is back. And I thought he had a solid game. He goes 14-25 for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did have an interception. He also rushed for a touchdown, and he took 5 sacks. And so it is what it is. It's like his third start, basically. And so, you don't want to see him take that many sacks. You don't want to see him turn it over, but it was good enough to get by a team in the NFC that's really good. And he iced the game with a conversion on 3rd and 5 with 1:41 left. So, they could have not trusted him to throw in that situation, and they did, and he put the game away. So, on the Lions side, Jared Goff had his quickest time to throw in a game since his rookie year at 2.44 seconds, but he was still pressured on 48% of his dropbacks. Rough performance by the Lions offensive line that was missing some starters, and you get a great outcome for the Eagles. A lot of great outcomes for the Eagles this week, really, as Detroit drops that game. Brett Eclipse says the frozen motion blur of Mark with Shane just looking around for like 10 seconds is killing me. Yeah, so sometimes just pull back the curtain. Sometimes with Riverside, the live stuff will like glitch out, but it's all there in the recording afterwards. So I was just trying to wait until he finished so I could delete the pause, whatever pause was left. And I think he messaged me and said his laptop shut off, so none of it's probably there. I'll have to edit that out. Or maybe I won't remember. And if you're listening on audio platforms and you're like, what was that 30-second pause? Well, now I guess you know. But let's keep rolling. We'll get Mark's thoughts on these games when he gets back. But go to another game that was a great outcome for the Eagles. Carolina at Green Bay. And Carolina beats the Packers 16-13. And maybe you get a bit of the Packers looking ahead to a big matchup with the Eagles this week. But the Panthers have shown that they can be feisty at times, and especially now that they've decided to give Rico Dowdle the lion's share of the carries again. And he delivered 130 yards and 2 touchdowns on 25 carries. He had 44 rushing yards over expectation, which brings his season total up to 172. Which is the 3rd highest total of anybody in the NFL. He also ripped off a 19-yard run to set up the game-winning field goal after the Packers tied it up late in the 4th quarter. And the Packers missed a lot of opportunities in this game. They were in the red zone 4 times, and they had a fumble and a turnover on downs 2 of the 4. Micah Parsons was completely just taken out of this game. He didn't record a single pressure, and it was the first game of his career where he didn't record a pressure. And this is not a great Panthers offensive line. So the Panthers played well. The Packers honestly just really didn't. And it culminates in being the first game the Panthers have won in Green Bay since 2008. I think the biggest thing to take away from this game, though, Packers-wise, is Tucker Kraft's injury. And reporting came out that his injury was an ACL, which will end his season. And that's a terrible break for the Packers. Tucker Kraft is an incredible player. And he is so much, I mean, on it, he's like their wide receiver 1. And they got a whole bunch of wide receiver 2s. And I mean, I'm not saying that, he's just a receiver, but he's their number 1 weapon. And with him out, I think it certainly makes a big impact on this Packers defense. And Jordan Love wasn't great in this game either. Like Brett Eclipse is saying here, he has his ups and downs. He has games where he looks like he can take everything over, and he has games where he just simply isn't very good. So, big win there for the Panthers, and it certainly helps the Eagles out a lot. So, okay, looks like Mark is back. Mark is hopping in. There he is. What's up, Mark?
I want to beat up the technical people who gave me this laptop, but that's a whole other conversation. What did I miss? What game did I miss?
So I covered Vikings, Lions, and Panthers, Packers.
I think,
but
you
were about to go on a big rant right as it dropped you. So we need to know what the rant was.
I honestly was just about finished. All I was saying was that Ben Johnson has the same, and it kind of goes hand in hand with these two games too. Keeping in the NFC North, great job there by our fearless leader Shane Haff. But what I'll say is Ben Johnson, everybody wrote the obituary on. After 2 or 3 weeks, they're 1-2. They blow a game to Minnesota. They get blown out by Detroit, and everybody craps all over them and makes fun of people who thought Detroit could take a step back without the coordinators, yada, yada, yada. Here we are. Detroit has the same record as Chicago. I'm not telling you Chicago is better than Detroit at all. They obviously played, and it didn't go well for Chicago. I'm not telling you Chicago is going to keep it up or make the playoffs. I'm not telling you that Detroit is going to miss the playoffs. I'm just saying I think Ben Johnson's doing a fantastic job over there. And we've often said, the 1-score game record and that type of stuff. When you're a team that wins a lot of your 1-score games, we look at it as fluky. And I think there's some correctness to that. That if you're a team that gets away with, the Vikings of a couple years ago when they went 11-1 in 1-score games and kind of had a fraudulent season, I think you could sniff that out. And I think Ben Johnson's kind of doing some of that in Chicago. But we always say on this show, yeah, it might be fraudulent, but let's give the head coach credit. Because I do think some of those 1-score game record, you can directly attribute it to decisions made by the head coach. I think Ben Johnson's been awesome over this last stretch for Chicago.
All right.
And then Detroit, Minnesota, yet another home loss as a favorite for Detroit that, the national media the next day is absolutely crickets on. Detroit, still the favorite in gambling odds in the NFC, by the way, Shane, and the best odds to win the Super Bowl in the NFC, despite losing at home as a 9.5-point favorite to the J.J. McCarthy after getting quiet benched led Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah. And then Panthers beating the Packers. Anything you want to mention on that one?
What are the Packers? Like, this is one I can actually we can sit with a little bit. Like, what are they? Like, you see what they were in the first 2 weeks. They handled Detroit, who, whatever I just said about Detroit, handling them the way that Green Bay did back in week 1 is impressive. In week 2, we know more about Washington now, but hand up, like, that game was still impressive. Even if Washington's not very good, they weren't as hurt back then. I know they only won the game by 9. Washington scored a garbage time, I think 8 points at the end. Green Bay controlled that game the whole way. Then you have those weird games with Dallas, the weird loss to Cleveland. Now you have this weird loss to Carolina. But you also have that second half last week against Pittsburgh, where it looked like if Green Bay plays like that on both sides of the ball, they're the best team in football. And then they show up the next week and lose this 13.5-point favorite. I think it's the biggest favorite. I don't know if you said this or if you saw this stat. I think it's the biggest favorite that's lost the game since like 2022.
Oh, no, I didn't say that.
I think I either saw that stat or heard that stat on a podcast. I might be misquoting it, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. Like, you don't get like 2 touchdown favorites in the NFL losing very often. Like, that is a pretty rare thing. Now, it's also pretty rare that the 2 touchdown underdog wins the game to have a winning record, to go 5-4. But man, what the Carolina Panthers? Who'd have thunk? two final comments before we kind of get back on track here and back in our normal swing of things. But how aware are you of the Meow Mix situation, Shane Half?
I feel like I have heard about that, but fill me in.
So the Panthers.
Oh, yeah. The podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, that shut down and then decided they're going to come back.
Yeah, but they're 4-1 since they shut down. So all these old Panthers came out. Jonathan Stewart, Angelo Williams. It's one of the, I forget, was it John Beeson? It might have been him. Trey Boston was one of the names. Like, there's some funny Panthers names coming out of the woodworks and be like, nah, you guys you guys can't be selfish. Like, you went away and we started winning. And they listened and they canceled the pod again. They said, sorry, we were going to release an episode and come back after the 4-1 win. We wanted to talk about the Panthers. But since the former players that we love have implored us not to, we're gonna stay in the dark, I guess, for a bit longer.
Imagine the Panthers make a run to the playoffs now, and the podcast just has to be permanently canceled.
And they got all these new followers, I guess, and subscribers, and they probably can finally monetize the podcast after all the buzz it got from them quitting. And part of my take from Barstool had them on, they got all this publicity. They're probably like, all right,
yeah,
we would have kept doing it if we had all this attention. But now that they have the attention, nobody wants them back. So it's a catch-22 that the Meow Mix guys, they almost need a Panthers cold streak, but not enough of a cold streak that nobody will pay attention. They need like a 3-game losing streak to put them at 5-7, or maybe you go 1-2 or something like that to put you at 6-7 at that point you can't say it's a curse that they're gone or whatever. And then to wrap it up, there was a comment earlier about it. I can only see the recent comments now, but Tucker Kraft going out is so massive for this Green Bay team. And everybody knows I've been high on this Green Bay team since last season. Honestly, we've been high as a podcast on this Green Bay team since the first Jordan Love season as a starter. I'll give Shane credit all the way back to his first preseason as a starter. Shane picked Green Bay to win that division or go to the playoffs, whatever it was. And I remember being shocked by it. I remember by week 5 or 6, I was like, I'm in. Green Bay's fun. I believe in this team. And then they go on the run in the second half. And then last year, they probably weren't quite as good as I gave them credit for being the whole year, but they hung around. And this year, they were the team that I said was the team that scares me the most for the Eagles down the stretch. I can confidently say after the Tucker Kraft injury, after some of these weird results, after watching how scared Matt LaFleur coached some of these games down stretches, I can confidently say they're not one of the top 2 teams I'm most concerned about in the NFC for the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's a little tease.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are back on track now. Let's go Chargers at Titans. The Chargers win 27-20. Justin Herbert threw a pick 6 on his second pass attempt of the game that put the Chargers in a hole. And then later in the game, a punt return touchdown by the Titans put the Chargers in a hole again. But they were able to answer. And then late in the game, when the Titans kicked a field goal to pull it back to a 1-score game, the Chargers ran out the final 4:19 on the clock to escape with the win. But the big story coming out of this game is Joe Alt leaving the game with another ankle injury that is going to require season-ending surgery. And I feel like I've been on the full roller coaster ride with the Chargers where I liked them as a Super Bowl contender. Then Rashawn Slater was lost for the year in training camp, and we agreed they were done. And then I started to believe again, and then Alt got hurt. And then they survived and he came back and I was like, they could still do it. And now he's done for the year. And I just feel like it's all over again. I mean, a great microcosm for how I think the rest of this season is going to go is Herbert being sacked the play after Alt left with the injury. And I mean, it sucks for the Chargers because they've done the right things. They took the offensive line seriously. They have Rashawn Slater, who's one of the best tackles in the game. They go out and they sign Mekhi Becton in the offseason. They spent a first-round pick on Joe Alt. They've invested, and it's just not paid off because of injuries. And I hate it, but it really feels like the Chargers are probably back into that they don't have a chance list.
Yeah, and even just overall with the Chargers, they gave up 20 to Tennessee in this game. Now, Part of that's a bad pick six early in this game by Herbert. So really they gave up 13, but the Chargers defense was this defense.
And a punt return. It was a punt return touchdown too.
So actually,
they only gave up.
Never mind. I'm going to erase what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about the defense hasn't been quite as good because you look at 27 to the Dolphins, 38 to the Colts, and now this one. But you're correct that a lot of that was fluky. So I'm just going to say, even though that is fluky, being in a close game with the 2025 Tennessee Titans is bad. You can't. I don't care if you give up a pick six, a punt return touchdown. You have to figure out a way to not need a first down at the end of the game, to not give the ball back to the Titans. Like that. The Chargers are 6-3. But the Joe Alt injury, you look at this schedule for the Chargers, and you have Pittsburgh this week, a line that, by the way, was 5 on Sunday going into the like the games, the look ahead lines for next week. That was Chargers -5 against Pittsburgh. Now, Chargers go out and look unimpressive. Pittsburgh goes out and beats the world beater Colts, and Joe Alt gets hurt. That line's down to 2.5 or 2 on some sites. Chargers are still favored, but very, very slight favorite, and I actually lean Pittsburgh in that game. But you look down the stretch, they have a Raiders game at home, so we'll take that out. Besides that game, the Chargers have Steelers at home, at Jags, Eagles, at Chiefs, at Cowboys. Now, that's not that hard, but it's still on the road across the country. Houston, who knows what they are, and then at Denver. But Denver, KC, Eagles, the Jags, who are fighting for the same playoff spot the Chargers are, the Steelers. Like, that's 5 pretty tough games down the stretch for a team that probably is without their 2 best players on their roster in Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. Maybe you could say Derwin James, but I think there's a lot of chatter, and we'll talk about it when we get to the Chiefs and Bills. A lot of chatter about how the Chiefs could miss the playoffs. They're 5-4, maybe a tough schedule down the stretch. I think it's much more likely that we're talking about a Chargers collapse down the stretch without Joe Alt that allows them to miss the playoffs than the Chiefs.
Yeah. All right. Let's go Atlanta at New England. New England wins 24-23. The Patriots looked firmly in control of this game. They had a 2-score lead in the third quarter, but then a Drake May interception and 2 Falcons scoring drives made it really interesting, but a missed PAT kept it a 1-point game. The Patriots go 3-and-out, but the Falcons punted it back, and then the Patriots iced the game. It was an injury-riddled game for the Pats. They lost Kayshon Boutte to a hamstring injury, Christian Ellis to a hip injury, Christian Gonzalez to a head injury. He was at the podium after the game, so it can't be too serious, thankfully, because he's a guy that's fantastic but has had a lot of injury issues. But the Patriots have got to protect Drake May. He took 6 sacks in this game, and he has 16 sacks in the last 3 games. And sacks aren't always an offensive line thing. A lot of times they're a quarterback thing, but for a young quarterback, you got to be able to protect the guy. And the Patriots are failing at that right now, and I don't want to see another promising quarterback have a major injury or have a career cut short, like with Andrew Luck and like with what, I fear is going to end up happening with Justin Herbert, the way things have been for him. So that's got to be priority 1 for the Patriots. I would have liked to have seen them, maybe done something at the deadline offensive line-wise, but there's rarely anybody good on the move on the offensive line. May did go for 200 passing yards and 100-plus passer rating for his 8th straight game. Only one other quarterback has ever done that, and it was Aaron Rodgers, who did it 11 straight times in 2011. So look out, A-Rod. Drake May's coming for you. I guess I'll also mention Drake London had 3 touchdown catches in this game. He was amazing, but it just wasn't enough for the Falcons.
Yeah, and I think we'll kind of mention trade deadline stuff as it comes up. I don't think we've hit on a team yet that made a big move. But a comment about the Pats being surprised that they didn't make any deadline moves. I'm surprised Jacoby Myers goes to the Jags, and we'll mention that when we get there. That was a guy who, I've always been a bigger fan of Jacoby Myers than I think everybody else. He's had some underrated seasons. I think he's an underrated player. And I think he would have been a really nice addition for New England or Buffalo. And I think that could have even had the potential to maybe even swing that kind of division race. And he goes to Jacksonville, where it's like, is that going to move the needle for the Jags at all? Like in that passing offense, like they've had talented pass catchers plenty of times over these last 2 years. I don't know how much that's going to make a difference, but I'm actually just going to use this as kind of a big picture point. The Chiefs and the Bills played this week. And I think we have been pretty consistent on this podcast pretty much since the day Rashawn Slater got hurt, that it's going to be the Chiefs or the Bills. Like, and actually at that point we were still saying the Ravens. Maybe they could sneak.
I'll still throw the Ravens in there.
Maybe they could sneak their way back in. That's absolutely fair. But let's label them as part of this then. The Chiefs, Bills, and the Ravens, the traditional powerhouses of the AFC of recent. Bad week for the people who thought maybe another person could sneak into the party. Whether your thought was the Patriots could sneak into the party. Look at that schedule. Maybe they can get a 1 seed, and maybe they still can. That was not a great performance from Atlanta. Drake May didn't look quite as superhuman as he had. And by the way, I'm not taking anything away from Drake May. What he's done is so far ahead of schedule, especially with what's around him. That is not a good supporting cast.
I think Patriots fans should be very excited about what's happening this year. But even if they had the 1 seed by virtue of an easy schedule, I would probably pick them to lose in the divisional round of the playoffs. Their roster is just not good enough, and they've been beneficiary. And it's not to take away from what they've done. It's been an incredible turnaround, and I love May and I love Vrabel, but they're benefiting from a pretty easy schedule right now. And all you can do is beat the teams in front of you. But if you want to be taken really seriously, it's like a Super Bowl contender, not just a team taking a big step. You got to beat them more convincingly than that.
Yeah, and it's New England. Disappointing showing and maybe some signs of humanness from Drake May. You have the Indianapolis Colts losing a game against the team that I don't think any of us are that impressed with. You have Denver, probably should have lost that game. We'll get to that if a quarterback doesn't get hurt for their opponent. Chargers lose Joe Alt. Like whoever your team was that you thought like maybe it could be this team that upsets the apple cart in the AFC, I think you're out of luck after watching the results this weekend. Actually, you know what? This is the perfect time to drop the segment on you. And I don't know if this is maybe me and Shane both cook up some power rankings going forward, or if this is maybe I cook up power rankings and Shane reacts to them down the stretch. And I'm not going to give you 1 through 32 or anything like that. I have a top kind of 12 listed out here, but is it fair to say, and we kind of talked about this last week, 1 through 8, I have 2 AFC teams on that list. I have 6 NFC teams before we get to a 3rd AFC team.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
And I think
it depends on what you think the Ravens are going to end up doing, and but
I think I need
for
more.
Now, it's definitely fair.
I need more evidence that defense is fixed. I know that they've looked good recently. That defense looked really bad early on this year. And I believe that they probably are better than that, but I probably need a little bit more evidence before I really say, you know what, they're the Ravens. They're back. They're exactly what we thought they were. And that, if you look at their schedule, if they beat Minnesota this week, we're probably going to be saying that because it's like Minnesota, Cleveland, and then the Jets. So they're probably just going to be right back at 500. But I'll have you guess it, Shane. Shane loves making me guess things and making me look silly. But this isn't as bad because Shane's just guessing my opinion. I'll just top 8. How do you think I have the top 8 ordered? 1 through 8.
Okay. So number one, Eagles. Number 2, Rams. All right. Number 3, Chiefs. We're rocking right now. So Eagles. Hold on. Let me think again. Eagles 1. Rams 2. Chiefs 3. Seahawks 4.
Seahawks 5.
Okay. Bills 4. Seahawks 5. Buccaneers 6.
I put the Bucs at 8, but you could sway me 6 through 8 any direction.
Okay, so I'm assuming the others are Packers, Buccaneers, Lions.
Yeah, I put Packers still at 6, Lions still at 7, and then the Bucs at 8. And then to me, there's a gap from 8 to 9. Whether you want to say that's the Patriots, whether you want to say that's the Colts, the Broncos, or even if you want to say the 49ers, I probably wouldn't say that. I would say whoever you pick to be the most legitimate of those AFC teams, or like you said, it's the Ravens. But To me, I think it's those 8 teams, and then with an asterisk next to the Ravens that can win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that at all. All right, let's keep rolling along then. San Fran at New York Giants, 34-24, the 49ers win. Mac Jones was 14 of 14 passing in the first half. They jump out to a 17-7 lead, and they never relinquished that. Christian McCaffrey was his favorite target, again, leading the team in targets, receptions, and yards. He also had 106 rushing yards. This was his 16th game in his career with both a receiving and rushing touchdown, which is the most in NFL history. He passed Marshall Faulk and is in sole possession of that now. The 49ers did lose Mykel Williams to an injury in this one, and they're just another one of those teams that's almost too banged up to take super seriously long-term unless they can get healthy. On the Giants side, Jackson Dart continues to make the Giants watchable. He's 20-33 for 191 yards and 2 touchdowns. He rushed for 56 yards and a touchdown, but he's just all that they have. I don't really trust him long-term either because we've seen a scrambler come in and give life too many times before flaming out, but he does make for a fun watch, and he at least makes it watchable for the Giants this year.
1 minute and 1 second. I forgot to tell you were on the 1 minute warning for that game, but you filled it anyway perfectly. I got
all right.
Nothing on that one. The Niners are what we thought they were. The Giants are fun, but stink.
All right. Well, let's keep rolling then. Indy at Pittsburgh. Indy loses 20-27. This game started out well for the Colts. They forced a 3-and-out, went on a 13-play. I accidentally typed 789-yard touchdown drive, but unless there were a tremendous amount of penalties, I'm going to assume that was 78 or 79-yard touchdown drive. Then they forced another 3-and-out. So 3-and-out, long touchdown drive, 3-and-out. But they muffed the punt. Then the defense got a 4-and-out, a turnover on downs. And the Colts were on the move again, and then Daniel Jones was strip-sacked by T.J. Watt, and it was all downhill from there. This was the Daniel Jones game we'd all been waiting for. Danny Dimes is back. Threw 3 interceptions. He fumbled 3 times. He did drop back to pass 55 times because, for some reason, the Jonathan Taylor rushing attack couldn't do anything. I don't want to make this game a referendum on Daniel Jones because he's been fun this year, and I wish him and Steichen all the best. But when you drop a game like that, it definitely raises some questions. And you would think that would mean the Steelers rolled in this game, but they didn't. They only won by 7. Their run game had 38 yards on 23 carries. Rodgers was 25 of 35 passing, but it was all underneath stuff. And Rodgers had an average depth of target of 2.7 yards, which is the 3rd lowest of any game this season. And he only attempted 3 passes over 10 air yards. So it's also fair to wonder just if this is even sustainable for the Steelers to play football this way.
It's sustainable to go 9-8.
That's true. That is the end-all, be-all for the Steelers.
Well, I don't know about you, Shane, but anytime I watch my offense go out there and turn it over 6 times, I want to go out there and give up multiple first-round picks to go get a cornerback and try to go all in this year, right after losing to the Steelers. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say I think that's an awful trade? Like, not a bad trade. I think it's awful for Indianapolis.
Yeah. So here's the thing. From the Jets' perspective, and I just went over this on Birds of the Roundtable. From the Jets' perspective, I think 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner is good compensation. Now, you could argue that you should be building around a 25-year-old corner who's a top 5 guy at his position. However, it feels like there's some behind-the-scenes things going on there. And again, defensive-minded coach, it feels like this is a guy you should build around, but I think they got good value for him. For the Colts, what the heck are you doing? Like, you just publicly declared Daniel Jones is our franchise quarterback. And you did that because you are having a good season, but let me list for you the teams that they have beaten so far this year. They've beaten the 2-7 Dolphins. They've beaten the 1-8 Titans twice, the 2-6 Raiders, the 3-5 Cardinals, the 6-3 Chargers, but when both of their tackles were out, And then they did beat the the Broncos, who were 7-2
on a leverage call on a field goal.
Yeah. So I just don't think this is going to work out. I need to see somebody be good for more than half a year, especially somebody that there's a lot of data that says is bad. I just think this was an insane move for the Colts to make.
Yeah, and it's like, if you're the Colts, maybe this is the wrong way to look at it, but like you are having this like shockingly out of nowhere season where you're 7-2. You might have found a quarterback you can hitch your wagon to, at least somewhat more than what you have had in the last 8 years in Indiana, or however long it's been since Luck retired, 5 years. And you have the new owner, and you're 7-2, and nobody expected that. Your win total was like 7.5 in general, 8.5 maybe. So you're almost at that win total, and you go out there and you like accelerate everything about your timeline. Like, now there's expectations. Now, if you don't go out there and win the AFC or win the Super Bowl, it's a disappointment in some ways, giving up these first round picks. And I'm just a little bit tired. And I'm a little bit tired of, big name player gets traded and we all celebrate online like, oh my God, what a huge move. They're going all in. Like, and it's so fun and it's sexy to make these big trades of first round picks for big name players and all that stuff. And then you're in the situation where the Commanders are, where you go 3-6 or 3-7. Maybe you've had some bad luck with quarterback injuries. And guess what? You have like no second, third, or fourth round pick this year because you made too many splash moves going and getting veterans. Now, Sauce isn't veteran. He's 25. If you're a Colts fan, you can like argue with me and say, hey, he's 25 years old. It's not just about this Super Bowl window with Sauce. I would tell you that cornerback's a position where guys do age quickly at times. Like, sometimes you hit that wall at 30 if you're a corner. Sometimes it happens a little later,
and none of it matters if you don't have the quarterback. And I remain thoroughly unconvinced that they have the quarter. Like, if the Packers go and make this move, if the Ravens made this move, if the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills made this move, it's like, absolutely go for it. You're in a Super Bowl window. You've got your quarterback. Push the chips in. The Colts, I guess I just don't view this as a Super Bowl window for them. And their record says it is, but their opponents they face say maybe we should have tapered expectations a little bit.
Yeah, and we've been on this in general, but I wouldn't give up multiple first-round picks for any non-quarterback. That's how I feel now. I know Myles Garrett's out there, and people would probably say
I would
opposite.
For a pass rusher.
And yeah, a pass rusher, and Micah Parsons. Like, there's a couple guys, maybe I should say, that I should make a list. It's probably like 5 or less for me. I am always skeptical of giving up too much for any non-quarterback. And I think people really, and everybody says like, oh, like Howie makes these big trades. Like, where was Howie on this one? And I know he called about Myles, he called about Micah, like whatever that stuff is. Howie's made a big trade like one time in terms of giving up multiple first round picks. And it wasn't multiple, it was one for AJ, and he gave up a third with it. And AJ was a 24-year-old receiver at the time, I believe, maybe 25. And we were in what looked like probably what was about to be a little bit of a window to compete. So different situation, but he's only done it one time. People act like Howie's given up first round picks all the time for players. He understands that that's not how you get better. You go out there and you give up the third, or you give up a fourth, or you try to find these assets that are being underappreciated. And Howie hasn't been great at that at times, to be honest, but hopefully he nailed it out of the park this time. Anyway, the Jets, they have to make the picks and they have to not screw it up. And, I get that people could say like, you traded Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. Hopefully the picks you get turn out to be Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. But there is something about resetting the clock on these contracts. And those guys are on these big, big contracts. Didn't Howie give them multiple first trade up for Wentz? Now, that's a little different. You're trading up for a prospect, and it's also, I said, a quarterback. So a non-quarterback. I understand mortgaging the future, giving up the farm for a quarterback that you think's a franchise guy. That's a different conversation. And that's what the Jets are looking to do, by the way. And I love, initially we thought this was a 2026 first from Dallas to the Jets. And I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. You're going to get a high pick this year. And then it came out, it was a 2026 second and a 2027 first to Dallas. And I like that even more for the Jets because there's not a strong quarterback in this class. Now you have 2 picks in this year's class, and you have the 3 next year. Shane, imagine the Jets get the 2nd or 3rd pick this year, and someone's desperate to trade up. The Jets trade from 2 or 3 down to 8 or 9, and you get another first, and you have 4 firsts going into 2027, and you're not committed to a quarterback. You do another bridge year or whatever the Jets want to do, and you have 4 firsts going into next year, a bunch of cap space, and the world is your oyster. If you're, I think his name's Brandon Muji, I believe it is the Jets GM, something like that. But I've been telling I have a Jets fan friend, trade down from that top pick if you can get the Travis Hunter offer like they got this year, like teams have gotten from quarterbacks. Imagine you trade down with what you already have in 2027, and you already have an extra pick in 2026. Awesome. Someone says, can we talk about Breece Hall missing the Jets garage sale escape portal? If you look around at the contenders, there's not a lot that need running backs. Like, it's Kansas City, and Kansas City has shown they do not care about the running back position, and they've won Super Bowls with pretty terrible running games. In their opinion, it wasn't probably worth giving up more than a 5th or a 6th, and then the Jets were like, probably not worth giving them up for a 5th or a 6th. That's probably what happened.
Yeah, yeah, I would assume so, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to keep the running back for a rebuild.
But, I mean, the comments can tell me, go through the top teams in the NFL and tell me which team is dying for Breece Hall. Because it's not the Rams with Kyron Williams, it's not the Eagles with Saquon, it's not Seattle with their 2 guys, it's not Tampa with their 2 guys, it's not Green Bay with Josh Jacobs, it's not Detroit with their 2 guys, it's not New England, who just spent a high pick on Travion, even if he hasn't been that good.
It might be New England.
Maybe it should have been, but they don't want to spend another asset.
They hate Travion.
At least, I think they gave him 14 carries this week, so at least they're starting to. Buffalo's got James
because
Cook.
Ramondre was hurt, and they still didn't give him like 15 carries.
They got handcuffed to having to give him work this week, at least.
Well, they still gave another guy like 11 carries.
Yeah, someone who I've like never heard of, like Terrell something. Yeah, whatever. Indy's got Taylor. Jacksonville's got ETN. Denver's got 2 guys. The Chargers, maybe the Chargers should have, but they're probably feeling like our season's over anyway. Why are we giving up an asset for a running back when we just drafted a guy in the 1st round? So, yeah, it's not a lot of teams need running back, and the teams that do are kind of bad this year.
Okay, let's keep rolling. Denver at Houston. Denver wins 18-15. The Broncos offense struggled against the Texans defense all day long, but they did put up 11 unanswered points in the 4th quarter to win the game. Derek Stingley Jr. did a great job on Cortland Sutton. He did give up a 30-yard touchdown, but it was the only reception Sutton recorded on the day. RJ Harvey was their leading receiver with 5 catches for 51 yards and a touchdown.
Free RJ
becoming
Harvey. Free RJ Harvey, 2 carries.
Yeah, no kidding. He became the first rookie running back with a receiving touchdown in 3 straight games. So, on a bit of a heater, and yet they still don't use him very much. The Texans were inside the Broncos' 5-yard line twice in the first half, and they settled for field goals. Also, C.J. Stroud left this game with a concussion, speaking of a guy at teams that can't protect the quarterbacks, and Davis Mills had to come in, leading a drive down to the 2, but ultimately settling for a field goal. Any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, D'Amico is a coward. I'm done with D'Amico Ryans. He's not a good head coach. Like, he's a good defensive coordinator. And the defense is good, and the offense has significantly gotten worse each year he's been there now. And you can say that's on the offensive coordinator. This is the problem with hiring D'Amico Ryans as your head coach and hiring a defensive-minded guy, because he's going to make these cowardly decisions. Kicking field goals at the 2-yard line? What are we doing? It's 2025. Like, do we not realize that if you go for it on the 2-yard line, what does the other team have to do then, Shane?
They've got to go 98 yards. First they got to try not to get safetied.
Yeah, it's fun. Any team kicking a field goal within the 5-yard line should have to, like, that head coach should have to meet with the owner that week. Like, there should be a fine. Like, I don't care what the situation is. The only time I'm even listening is at the end of the half, because then you don't get the benefit of pinning a team deep and yada, yada, yada. I can listen to that. Like, Kansas City had that situation this week. I still would have went for it, but at least you can say, we wouldn't have pinned them even if we went for it and didn't get it. Houston twice could have pinned them if they didn't get it. and they kick the field goal anyway. And that's what loses them the game, in part with also Stroud gets hurt and Mills isn't very good. But it's just D'Amico was a coward all game. And then, after being a coward all game, you get the ball 15-15 with 1 minute and 14 seconds left, and you can run the clock, and you go incompletion on your first 2 plays? What are you doing? Like, you have Davis Mills. They started the drive at the 13, Shane. Did they think they were going 50 yards in 1 minute and 14 seconds when they scored 15 points all game? Like, dumbfounding decision-making from D'Amico Ryans in this game. And he's probably safe from being fired because the Texans don't have a real fan base that's going to, like, apply pressure on the owners. And he had that first year, and even last year they won a playoff game. So he probably has enough sway to avoid that. I think he should be on the hot seat, even if he's not.
Yeah.
And yeah, someone said Sean Payton's an a-hole. Did you see Sean Payton reading the riot act to the one media guy who asked him a question?
Yeah.
Maybe this is an unpopular take. I kind of like having a couple a-hole coaches in football. Like I kind of like having Kirby Smart around in college, like faking timeouts and acting like he's clapping his hands, and Sean Payton dressing down beat reporters, calling them the wrong name, and Vrabel intimidating beat reporters sometimes. I think it's a fun football trope that I kind of like.
I can't stand him, but he's a great coach.
He's a great coach.
All right, into the afternoon slate. Man, I thought this was not going to be as long of a show as it's turned into.
The games were too good.
Right.
It's not our fault.
They were. Yeah, the games were bad last week, and now they were good. So Jacksonville at the Raiders goes to overtime. The Jags win 29. Trevor Lawrence threw one of the worst interceptions you will ever see in the end zone in the first quarter to kill a scoring drive. Then they're trailing 6-3 at the half with their only 3 points coming from an NFL record 68-yard field goal. They put together 5 consecutive scoring drives in the second half and overtime, including 2 Lawrence rushing touchdowns. The Raiders got Brock Bowers back, and that was huge for the offense. He was targeted 13 times, had 12 catches for 127 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ashton Genty had 89 total yards and a touchdown. He also forced 9 missed tackles, and his 46 missed tackles forced ranks 3rd in the NFL right now. Geno Smith threw for 4 touchdowns, but it all ends up in overtime. Jags get the ball in overtime and score a touchdown, and then the Raiders march down the field, score, they go for 2, and they had an open receiver in the end zone, and the ball was batted down. So this did become the first game in NFL history with multiple touchdowns scored in overtime. So nice little record there. What do we have here, Mark? What are you sharing?
First of all, I had Jags minus 2.5 on this game, and they are scumbags for allowing the Raiders to come all the way down the field to score. And then once the Raiders were going for 2, I was rooting for the Jags to lose the game since I lost the bet anyway, and they won anyway. So I'm anti-Jags for the rest of the year because of that. But also, did you see this going around on Twitter, Shane, where Trevor Lawrence, apparently this guy has tweeted it a couple times, and this is like the only thing this guy's tweeted, I guess. He's just like a Trevor Lawrence hater. And he's been on this for a while, that Trevor looks at the ball while it's coming out of his hand when he throws it. And apparently this is like a regular thing for him. Have you ever heard of this before or seen this before?
No.
I
have not.
That's unbelievable. Like, I'm generally not someone who piles on Trevor that much. It seems like he's completely lost any of his fundamentals or mechanics that were kind of like his strong points in college. Like, it's stunning. Doug Peterson Wentsified this guy to the point where Liam Cohen can't even save him, it seems like. And yeah, they put up 30. They won the game. Yuck.
All right. Rams, or let's see. It was Saints at Rams. This one's all you for a minute, Mark.
Yeah.
Take off.
Saints at Rams. Tyler Shuck is not the savior that I guess that Kellen Moore was hoping he would be. And always good when you have Tyler Shuck to get your running backs a combined 9 carries in the game with Alvin Kamara and Devin Neal. But you've got, on the other side of the ball, you've got the Rams and you've got Matt Stafford, who at this point, has to be talked about when we're talking about MVPs. Matt Stafford, what he's done has been unbelievable. You look at the Rams' resume, and it's hard to not talk about them like maybe they're not if Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis don't combine for some blocked field goals, I think we'd be talking about them as easily the best team in football because they're a team that they've beaten the Colts, they've beaten the Ravens, they've beaten. I guess that's really the only impressive games they've won. They've had a couple beatdowns mixed in, like the beatdown on Jacksonville, this beatdown, the beatdown in Tennessee, all that stuff. But you lose to the Eagles on an incredibly fluky loss. And then you lose on a Thursday night overtime game against San Fran. Shanahan kind of has always owned McVay a little bit. And it's a Thursday short week divisional round. It was clearly a weird game. And even in that game, the Rams outplayed them. I think they had a couple fumbles. Like,
you're too long.
Too
long?
long?
You're going to have to start.
I don't have anything else. So, yeah, the Rams are good.
Yeah, the Rams are good.
I forgot to look at the clock when you told me 1 minute warning. So I was like, I'm just going to go until he cuts me off.
I also forgot to wave you off earlier, but I was going to give you like a 15-second warning. I was just going to mention this one thing. Joshua Carty, the Rams kicker, missed another extra point in this game, and he missed a 39-yard field goal. He's now missed 5 field goals and 3 extra points this season. And all I want to say is it serves him right for the knuckleball kickoff garbage. Maybe you should have practiced actually kicking a football.
I like that. Shane, did you see the missed kick he had in this game? It's one of the worst field goal attempts I've ever seen an NFL kicker have. I truly missed it by maybe if you put uprights next to the uprights, he might have hit the crossbar. Stunningly bad.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably trying to kick a knuckleball and it just got away from him.
There's a Rams fan in this one, in a group chat that I'm in, that says consistently, he's like, this is going to lose the Rams a playoff game. He's like, our special teams is so bad. Whether, I guess they're bad at covering special teams as well. They've also, not just against us, but they've allowed a bunch of blocked kicks. Carty's now just missing kicks unblocked. He's been very repetitive that ever since, I guess, the knuckleball, stifled us. I think they've not been very good in general on special teams at all.
All right, let's talk Chiefs-Bills. The Bills win 28-21, and their beleaguered defense held Patrick Mahomes below a 50% completion percentage for the first time in his career, sacked him 3 times, and picked him off once. Now, the Chiefs did convert a 4th and 17 in the fourth quarter that led to a touchdown and 2-point conversion to make it a 1-score game, but then the Bills punted. Mahomes had the ball with a chance to win, but he threw an interception. My favorite part of this game, though, is Josh Allen scoring 2 touchdowns on tush pushes after Sean McDermott spent the offseason campaigning against the play in the name of player safety. And then the broadcast neither bringing that up nor showing frame-by-frame breakdowns of the play to look for anybody flinching before the snap. So shout out to Sean McDermott for being a hypocrite, and shout out to NFL broadcast teams for only caring about the play when the Eagles run it.
Well, you have a tush-push takeaway from this game on the Buffalo side of the ball. I have a tush-push takeaway from this game on the Kansas City side of the ball, because you look at the end of the half when this game was still 21-10 Buffalo. If Kansas City scores, you have a touchdown, you get the ball after halftime. And Kansas City, with 20 seconds left, has a play go all the way to the 1-yard line. And it's 1st and goal at the 1 with 2 timeouts in 20 seconds. They run the ball up the middle with Kareem Hunt for nothing. And then you go 2 straight passes, and then they take a 19-yard field goal to go down 21-13. Once they kick that field goal, I said, this game's over. They're not coming back. Buffalo treated this game like it was an incredibly important game. They needed to be aggressive. They were going for it all over the place. And Kansas City was far too conservative, and that was the perfect example of it. And the perfect example of it is Patrick Mahomes got hurt on a QB sneak 6 years ago, and we're still not letting him sneak it, or we're not having a tight end come in and tush push it or sneak it. I've seen the rise of Eagles fans getting annoyed about the tush push, determining our third down decision making for the Eagles. Oh, it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. We're only running it because we have the tush push, or we should be more aggressive and we shouldn't be playing for the tush push. Any Eagles fan who ever wants to be negative about the tush push should go be forced to watch the end of the half for Kansas City there and watch them get to the 1-yard line. And it happens all over the NFL. It's not just Kansas City. Watch these teams get to the 1-yard line and have no idea what to do. it is such a superpower for the Eagles that they have that, and people don't appreciate that. And I'm talking about this because overall, everybody's falling for it, Shane. Everybody's talking about this game like it mattered. We all know what's going to happen.
Yeah, what is this, 5 regular season games in a row the Bills have won against
serious.
the Chiefs?
Let's be serious. And honestly, Buffalo outplayed them the whole game. I wasn't super locked in on this, like just this game. I was watching all the games at once, and I kept like kind of getting distracted and then being like, wait, the Chiefs are getting the ball back again here with a chance to win it. Like Buffalo down the stretch in the second half, they go punt, touchdown, punt, missed field goal. So they gave them 3 chances in the second half to go and tie the game. Kansas City didn't take it. There's nothing like, I thought Buffalo way outplayed Kansas City, and Kansas City still had a chance to go and tie this game on the road in Buffalo. So I still think Kansas City's going to be the team to beat in the AFC, despite them being 5-4 and despite them losing to Buffalo.
Yeah. All right. Brett Eclipse said that Brandon Aubrey is the best kicker in the league, and he's probably pissed about the fact that Cam Little broke the record first on the same week Aubrey missed from the same distance. Maybe Jerry Jones can go chase that record when the Cowboys are 4-11-1 in December. They can like intentionally set up some 69-yarders for Brandon Aubrey, and then Jerry can be back in the news. But let's get into Sunday night. And Mark, let's 1-minute drill both of these games. Do you want Sunday night or Monday night?
Give me Sunday night.
All right, take it away.
Sunday night, the Seattle Seahawks take on the Washington Commanders, and Jaden Daniels' arm snapped, and that's the story of the game. But it was 31-7 at the time, and Dan Quinn, shout out to him. He did come out there and say, hand up, my bad. He didn't try to make any excuses. He just said he dropped the ball, and I kind of think that's exactly what happened. And everybody complained about it. There weren't people yelling that Jaden Daniels should be taken out of the game until he got hurt. I actually think it is a little overreactionary by the people wanting to kill Washington and Dan.
I agree 100%.
Thank you.
He was just coming back from injury, and you're trying to like build some momentum, and it's not like they were calling. I criticized the Giants for doing this against backups where they ran dart twice in a row at the goal line. They weren't calling designed runs. He just got sacked. It happens.
Yeah, it was bad luck. And then on the other side of the ball, I just want to say, if it comes down to Sam Darnold, man. If Sam Darnold is a legit quarterback option who's not going to lose you games in the playoffs, Seattle has absolutely everything else to win the Super Bowl, and it's just on him to not screw it up.
Yeah. Jackson Smith-Njigba, by the way, is on pace to break the NFL record for single-season receiving yards right now. Our guy.
I love him. He's the man. He's so good, and he was so right about Shane Waldron. Shout out to him. And one last thing. Some Seahawks fan people out there are mad every time Zach Charbonnet touches the ball because he's averaging 2.9 yards per carry, and Kenneth Walker is averaging 4.5 yards per carry. I've been a longtime Charbonnet fan, but I am a longtime hater of running backs who average like 3.5 yards per carry or less. I have to bring it up.
Yeah, and then Marshawn Lattimore tears his ACL. Luke McCaffrey breaks his collarbone. Both of them out for the year.
Marshawn Lattimore's actively bad at football at this point, so I don't know if that matters. But yeah, the season's over for Washington.
All right, Monday Night Football, Arizona at Dallas. Arizona wins 27-17 with their backup quarterback, who is now their starting quarterback because Jonathan Gannon said Jacoby Brissett will be the starting quarterback, which makes sense. Kyler Murray's played 6 games this year. The Cardinals have not put up 300 yards in any of them, but they've averaged 357 in 3 games with Brissett. The offense just operates better. Marvin Harrison Jr. operates better. It is worth mentioning the Cowboys' defense is awful, but, at least they traded for a linebacker from the only defense in the NFL worse than they are. In fairness, they have lost a lot of guys to injury, but their defense has just been embarrassing so far this year. Walter Nolan made his NFL debut and had a sack and a run stuff. Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell, 2 sacks each. Calais Campbell passed J.J. Watt on the all-time sack list. He now is 24th overall with 115.5 sacks.
That's a little bit like when this is going to be a reference that goes over your head, but Jamie Moyer, is that a baseball name Shane?
I know the name.
He was like a pitcher for like 27 years. Like he pitched until he was like 46. So he has a lot of like if you look at like some of the records, he's like high on the list, and it's like, well, you pitched for a long time. It's like a little bit like Calais Campbell probably played like 10 more years than JJ Watt at this point. So I don't know.
Yeah.
If I'm JJ, I'm like, I'm throwing a challenge flag there. But
JJ Watt did throw a challenge flag this week, by the way, about the ESPN and YouTube TV thing, and was like, so I guess we're just not watching Monday Night Football anymore. So good for JJ Watt.
JJ Watt also, have you seen some of his PFF stuff, how anti-PFF he is, and pointing out some of the flaws in it? And so a good job by JJ, who I actually think's done it when I've heard him on calls, by the way. Fantastic. JJ's really good in the booth. But there's a comment, and this was my main point from the game. Shane, I'm old enough to remember when people were trying to say Dak Prescott was the MVP. Remember that when he was 3-4, 2-3-1, or whatever he was, and he's the MVP though. If they had a good defense, he'd be fantastic. The guy is what he is. Stop trying to make Dak something he isn't. He's going to put up big numbers in garbage time. He'll have a couple big games a year, but he's also going to have 3 or 4 games a year where he looks like he can't move the ball whatsoever against bad teams. And the Dallas Cowboys are not serious people. Jerry Jones, I don't know if you heard the press conference, or not even press conference. It was like a pep rally. Like he had like Michael Irvin and DeMarcus Ware in like some auditorium for fans, and he was getting interviewed, and that's where he said they were going to make the Quinnen Williams trade, but he wouldn't say who it was, but it was a big trade and all that stuff. And he said, well, it's not going to be boring. The Cowboys, I can tell you, I don't sit on my hands too often because you're always going to be talking about us. As long as we're in the news, I'm happy. And it's like nothing could, epitomize more the Jerry Jones, like that's how he feels at this point. He doesn't care if they compete. He just wants to be in the news.
Yeah. Breaking news, Mark. Frankie Louvu appealed his suspension to the NFLPA, and it was reduced to a fine. So what a joke. Why is the NFL Players Association siding with the guy who is intentionally breaking rules repeatedly designed for player safety? That's insane. Anyways, final thoughts, Mark. I now have a game that we're going to play for final thoughts. I'm going to read off trades, and you're just going to tell me which team won the trade. And saying don't care is also viable. So Saints trade a 6th-round pick for Trevor Penning to the Chargers.
Don't care.
Okay, that trade is why I put in the don't care. Jets trade Quinnen Williams for Mozzie Smith, a 2nd-round pick, and a 2027 first-round pick with the Cowboys.
Hilariously bad for the Dallas Cowboys. Incredible for the New York Jets. It basically means that the Cowboys traded Micah Parsons and Mozzie Smith for Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark, and a move up from the 2nd round into the late first for Green Bay's first this year.
Yeah. Saints trade Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks for a 4th and a 5th.
Are we sure Rashid Shaheed is like worth 2 picks or the 4th and a 5th? Like they're not big picks. I'm not going to kill Seattle for it or anything like that. They're competing. They feel like they need a receiver, but I'm going to say don't care.
We touched on Sauce Gardner already. Let's see. Raiders trade Jacoby Myers to the Jags for a 4th and a 6th.
Everybody loses. Like, I feel like, hey, should have gotten more. And Jacoby Myers is the biggest loser. Should have went to Buffalo or New England. I'm upset about it as a Jacoby Myers fantasy owner.
Cowboys trade a 7th rounder for Logan Wilson from the Bengals.
Huge win for everyone. No, I'm joking.
All right. Titans trade Draymond Jones to the Ravens for a 5th rounder.
I heard Titans fans are upset they didn't get more. So I'll say, who do they trade him to?
The Ravens.
Good win for the Ravens, just because I heard people say that. I guess he has like 4.5 sacks in his last 3 games or something.
Eagles get Jalen Phillips for a 3rd-round pick from the Dolphins.
It sounds like a lot, but the fact that they're going to get a compensatory pick in 2027 pretty much no matter what, or they traded for a guy who they lock up and is part of the long-term future. So either way, I'm going to say it's a win.
That's as far back as I care to scroll. So that's my final thoughts. Anything you want to throw out there, Mark, before we get out of here?
I had something that I wanted to throw out there, but I have lost it. So I'm going to go ahead and bid you farewell. I got nothing.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. Thank you for joining us for episode 210 of Chalk Talk. If you enjoy what you heard on the show, and We know that you do. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. Drop us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Shane Half NFL. He is at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. And we will catch you guys next time.